Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's FPC Radio Live. It is Monday, September the 26th, 2022, and week 3 is almost in the books. We have one more game tonight. It is the Battle of the NFC East. The New York Giants, undefeated New York Giants, go up against the Cowboys at home. So that should be a pretty interesting game. Hopefully, John, something far more interesting than what we saw last night, because when I hear the term "let Russ cook," the only image I get in my mind is Peggy Bundy. What about you?
Food poisoning, right?
Yeah, well, just someone who doesn't cook.
Or tries to cook and then, spoils everything. Or here's the thing, Frank Costanza, when he decided to get back into cooking and, they messed up the recipes and he went through like PTSD about what happened in Korea when he was cooking and got everybody sick. So maybe that's what Russell Wilson is doing.
I was pretty sick watching that game last night. Let's just put it that way. I don't know if I'm going to put Russ up to the level of, because we know Frank was one hell of a cook. We saw how he cracked that egg in one motion. That's impressive. Yeah. I mean, I've tried to do that and it's not turned out pretty well, but.
I could do that.
Yeah,
owning a breakfast place for 10 years, that you do pick up some skills.
Yeah, I would think so. Cracking an egg might be something you learn pretty quickly. I would imagine. Yeah. Last night's game again. I mean, I'm not going to say I have an agenda, because I'm never eagerly seeking out a certain frame of mind. But I try to, John, I call it how I see it. All right. That's just how it is. And I look at a guy like Russell Wilson, and I've always felt like he was a very good quarterback. Okay. But I've just never bought into, and we've talked about it, and we've talked about some of the times he's been, unfairly, and not, unfair to him, but like unfair to the discussion, have been put in the conversation with other quarterbacks where I just don't think he belongs necessarily. And I think we're seeing through 3 weeks a guy who is, he was a very good quarterback who is now 33 years old. So I think he is a pretty good quarterback. And we're seeing a Denver team that is very limited offensively. And they have a lot of talent. So what were your instant reactions from last night? Were you able to make it through the game last night?
Barely. I mean, when's the last time we saw a game 11-10? Like that?
1935 or something, because it's only happened one other time,
right?
John. Like literally, that was the second time in the history of the NFL that has happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's the score that makes absolutely no sense. We're talking about a safety. We're talking about San Francisco coming out on its first drive, marching down the field, and then doing nothing. There were 28 possessions last night in that game, and there were only 20 first downs. So, the punters were the stars of the game. It was just brutal to watch. The two big games yesterday, the names, right? The America's Football Game of the Week on Fox was Green Bay, Tampa, 14-12, and then the Sunday night game was 11-10. So, not a lot of scoring in those two nationally televised games. So both were kind of really tough to watch. Patriots game before that was entertaining, not necessarily well played, but it was entertaining.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's just, Denver is, you've got Nathaniel Hackett, who has no clue what he's doing yet. I mean, here's a guy, and I like him a lot. I mean, as a personality, he's an engaging guy. He seems like a great guy, but I don't think he's going to be a really good head coach. I mean, he didn't even call plays in Green Bay.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the offensive coordinator in title only, but Matt LaFleur calls the plays, and then Aaron Rodgers probably changes quite a few of them at the line of scrimmage, and probably should change even more of them. So he's coming into that without even a lot of experience with that. They're 2-1 somehow, but again, they beat a Houston team that's not that good, and then they lost to San Francisco, and they couldn't even beat Seattle on opening night. So yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson, like you said, 33, almost 34. It's almost like a point guard in the NBA that relies on athleticism. As they age, they don't evolve into the player that they were or could be, whereas the old quarterbacks that can beat you from the pocket can still be very effective at, 39, 45, or whatever ages Rodgers and Brady remain.
No, and that's kind of the thing. I mean, Russell Wilson's been hit so many times over his career, and again, I think his, my biggest issue with him is not necessarily his play, and I think the phoniness is what gets me, and the you know what I mean, the things that he does
Mhm.
that just kind of irk me, and like I said, I when it comes to football, how this is I connect it, I really feel like he's bought into a lot of his own hype, and I
Yes.
think that's a bad mix because again, right off the bat, early on in his career, it's funny to think that, you're talking in that second Super Bowl, Russell Wilson versus Tom Brady. Is it Tom Brady's, career winding down as Russell Wilson is about to take off? And it's like now it's the complete opposite. But, back then it was a little bit harder to judge because the sample size was so small and we had really a lot of great success. So, how are you going to knock Russell Wilson? Well, as time goes on, you kind of see like, okay, well, he's had opportunities to elevate his teams. Now, I'm not saying he hasn't won games and done great things to help the Seahawks win games, but I'm talking about when the strength of your team, the defense in this case, and we're talking about that, early 2010s Seahawks defense, which again is right up there among some of the greatest runs in NFL history. When that starts to not become your strength, what can you do to maintain the same level of success? And we've seen that, and obviously the Patriots are a great example because we've seen their defense be great, we've seen it be okay, we've seen it be bad, and we've seen it be mediocre. But they still won 12 games every single year. And that was
Mhm.
because they had, well, obviously a great quarterback. And I think Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. And I say that, hesitantly. And I just because I don't think anyone really understands the adjectives that describe these quarterbacks that well. Every quarterback's
Mhm.
great, or they're a bust, or they're trash, or they're under. No one really knows. So, is he a great quarterback? Yes, he can do great things. Is he tier one? And we use that term a lot just because I think that might be the best way to kind of differentiate between the two. No. Is he tier two? I don't know. I think we have to define tier two and figure out what that is because I don't know if that's necessarily going to include a hell of a lot of people. So, yeah, I don't know. I look at it and I'm like, good luck, Denver. I just, is there a lemon law on this ride? Can you exchange it back in after 30 days or whatever? I don't know because that contract is looming. I mean, they have him until he's 40 years old, John, and
Mhm.
look, we're basing this off, well, I mean, a little bit more than just 3 games, but focusing on the 3 games we've seen this season, it seems like a long, long, long time away.
Yeah, compare this to when Peyton Manning went there in 2012, right? He sat out 2011 with the neck injury, then signed with Denver in 2012 and lit it up from day one. Now, obviously, Peyton Manning's a greater quarterback than Russell Wilson. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. Peyton Manning's one of the 4 or 5 greatest quarterbacks of the Super, without doubt. And Russell Wilson is excellent. He's had a really nice career, but he's not at that same level as Manning, Brady, Rogers, all those guys. So yeah, you saw that Manning just stepped in and got it done. And he had a lot of talent around him, but it looks to me as though Russell Wilson has some talent around him. Pretty good offensive line, a couple of good backs, some nice receivers. He's got an offensive-minded coach now in Nathaniel Hackett. They've got a good defense, although it's tough to really gauge how good their defense is when you beat Seattle, Houston, and San Francisco, which still trying to figure out what the hell they are. So you see these low-scoring games. But yeah, I mean, the phoniness has always been a problem for me because my favorite quarterback is Rodgers, and he's kind of unapologetically an a-hole,
Hmm.
which I kind of respect more. He's just, okay, this is who the guy is. And he I think at times trolls people. But Russell Wilson, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, like the kid in high school that was always happy, but behind our backs he might have been stabbing us or
Yeah.
whatever, and not being like a real person. Whereas with Rogers, it's like here is the guy. This is what he is. Take him or leave him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, they've we heard recently about some gripes about some of the special treatment that Russell Wilson received when he was with the Seahawks, and that kind of vibes with the vibe that he gives off, and look,
Yep.
is it fair for us to judge that? Well, maybe not, but it is what it is because it's in the public eye and that's what we're talking about. And I do think that more than just exactly what you do on the football field is important when it comes to quarterbacks because they're leaders and they're looked at as being um, they got to set an example for every other player on that roster. It's just how it is. That's the dynamic of football. And I'm sitting there thinking like, I don't know if you saw on the sidelines, like I think after pretty bad series of plays, he was over there probably hyping, "Hey, let's go team, keep it up, keep your spirit," that type of generic rooting, something you would get out of some silly like Disney Channel show or something like that. But
Yeah, exactly.
but how long, John, until that falls on deaf ears? Because this
Yep.
isn't Seattle anymore. This isn't, well, I've been to 2 Super Bowls here.
Mhm.
Talking to the new players. Now it's like he's the new guy, and so far it's like I said, I made a joke about not cooking to start the show, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess he's been given opportunities. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to, I don't watch their games as intently as I do every single other team, but at a certain point, I've been told that this guy is a unique talent in this league, one of the best quarterbacks of the last 10 years. But all I'm seeing is a guy who had a really nice stretch, has some really nice qualities about what he does, but not someone who's consistent, and certainly not someone who consistently steps up in the big moments to elevate his
Mhm.
team. So,
Yeah, I mean, since losing the Super Bowl to the Patriots, he's had 2 playoff wins. One was against Minnesota when Blair Walsh missed what was essentially shorter than an extra point game-winning field goal. He hooked it left, so Minnesota would have won that game over Seattle back in 2015. And then they beat Philadelphia in 2019, and Carson Wentz got hurt on the first play of the game, and Seattle was able to pull out a win against the Eagles in Philadelphia. Those are his 2 playoff wins since losing the Super Bowl. So look, he's limited as a player. I mean, there's a reason he was a third-round pick. I mean, it's a really interesting story. NC State played well, transferred to Wisconsin, put up great numbers there. Really good baseball player. But we saw last week when we saw through NFL films how he was acting on the sideline. Come on, team, come on, team. Like that's like, I don't even think that works in high school anymore. It's
no,
like, first of
no.
all, no one hears you in a stadium of 75,000 people, and you're on the bench, trying to dictate your defense is doing it. I'm sure there's players on that team already, 3 weeks into his stay in
Well,
Seattle, will turn around and say, like, shut up, dude.
well, like I said, I mean, he doesn't have well, I've been here, I've won
Yep.
anymore. He's at a franchise that, despite their leanness at quarterback, they've had some great quarterbacks play with that Broncos logo on their chest. Obviously, Jake Plummer is who I'm talking about.
Yeah. And Greasy.
Yeah, Brian
we know.
Greasy. There's a couple others. I just can't remember their names.
Yeah.
Jay
I
Cutler.
think what Jay Cutler.
Jay Cutler. Yeah. He was a Bronco great.
Yeah. Brock Osweiler.
Yeah, Brock Osweiler, of course. But anyway, so like he doesn't have that to fall back on, so he has to, in a way, prove himself. Now, obviously, he still has that history. I'm not taking away his success, but we've said it over and over again. There's a reason why he's never ended the season with an MO. I mean, not that it means a hell of a lot, but when you're trying to, I keep going back to a couple seasons ago when through 7 or 8 weeks he looked like, I mean, the runaway winner. And to I understand that, like, the guy who's playing the best through 8 weeks doesn't necessarily always win the MVP, and that happens pretty often. But at least they're in the conversation at the end of the year, even if it's kind of offhand. He wasn't even mentioned. There wasn't even a whisper. I mean, there was, you know what I mean? He was like 15th on the list, and that's incredible to me based on where we saw him at that point in the season. So, anyways, I don't want to spend this much time on Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. I've already bored myself. I'm going to bore the audience. So, no,
just rewatch the game if you have any problems falling asleep tonight.
Yes,
just put it back on and see if that could get you to get some season.
Obviously, yesterday, I will congratulate your guy, Aaron Rodgers. I thought that Bucks was a weird game. Very, very weird game. And I came away thinking those two quarterbacks are still phenomenal. And I don't know what's going to happen long term for either team, but I thought they both played very well. I mean, the interception, whatever. I mean, it is what like I said, that's the thing. Like people make such a big deal about interceptions, and obviously, I was in the conversation last year when it came to splitting hairs between these two, and people always like, oh, look at that one throw. It was such a bad throw. It didn't do anything to change Aaron Rodgers' game. You know what I mean? Like both offenses are limited. And I will tell you why, despite the loss, I actually came out of that game thinking or feeling better about this long-term prospects, because I think both defense played very well. I think they both had moments where they were a little uncertain. Obviously those first two drives, the Packers did such a great job at just controlling the clock. But I'll give Todd Bowles credit. He adjusts. You know what I mean? I have a lot of, and I'll get to this in a minute. I have a lot of problems with the offensive play calling, and at times the defense seems, why are you calling that? Or maybe that's a little bit too aggressive. But to give credit where credit's due, they adjust very well. So after those first couple drives, they essentially shut down. Well, after actually the fumble, I apologize. They shut down that Packers offense, which looked really good to start. I mean, they were utilizing the short passing game, and that's kind of their deal. Short passing game, run the offense through the two running backs, Aaron and Dylan. But Aaron Rodgers looked great. I thought, despite the limitations, I thought Brady played very well. But the problem is, I thought the play calling more so than the injuries. I mean, forget about the top three receivers being out. I've seen Brady win Super Bowls with receiving cores not much better than what he had last night. Let's face it, when Rashae Caldwell is your number one receiver and you're within a blown big lead away from going to the Super Bowl, I think he can make things work. And we saw that on the last drive where all of a sudden, oh my God, John, what did they do? They used the pass. They used hurry up offense. They motioned players. I don't care who's on the field. It was Cole Beasley, Mr. I've been there for 3 days. It was Brashad, Russell Gage, a limited Russell Gage, who's a little banged up, and they were still running this offense because it's Tom Brady and it runs through him. And at the beginning of the game, I'm thinking, first play game, John, from that Bucs offense, 24-yard dart. I'm like, yes, they've listened to me. They're going to start setting up the run through the pass and not the opposite, which for whatever reason has been the philosophy through the first two games. What did they do, John, right after that?
Run.
And I was like, I can't deal with this, because it's foolish, in my opinion, to take the ball out of the hands of your best player, and that is your quarterback, who incredibly enough, I mean, again, these first three games, if you're going to comment on Brady, it's going to be very telling how you comment, whether or not you're a box score watcher or someone who actually watches and studies the game, because the stat line is not good. Obviously, you know what I mean? What, three touchdowns through 3 games, an interception, his yardage. I mean, yesterday he made up some towards the end there with some nice yardage, but it's certainly not on pace as it was last year. Coming into the game, he was like a 58 completion percentage, a quarterback, but clearly playing not at that standard or above that. And we saw it in terms of, excuse me, accurate passes, velocity. And look, we saw that from Aaron Rodgers too. I thought they both played very well yesterday. I honestly don't know who played better. I'll give Aaron Rodgers the edge because of those first 2 drives. And I think ultimately that was the difference because, well, the game ended 14-12, John. Like, who would have thought 14-12 was going to be the score of that game? But like I said, to start this rant, I guess you want to call it, I'm actually coming away thinking I like the Bucs a lot better, because all those struggles, like the play calling needs to get better. And I really hope that they reevaluate what they do well, because every time that offense ran through Brady's arm, it looked like a pretty well-oiled machine. some of those problems will be fixed when you just get the talent that they have back. I mean, just by virtue of pure talent, they're going to get better. Correct me if I'm wrong, John. I don't see where that's coming for Green Bay. This is who Green Bay is. Are you going to count on Sammy Watkins? No.
No.
So.
No, I mean, unless they acquire a wide receiver or he continues to grow. Look, Romeo Dobbs, I thought looked good yesterday. I think that's someone they can build upon. Randall Cobb, but again, Randall Cobb's not going to be the most durable guy at 52 years old. I mean, he made some really nice plays yesterday. They still got to integrate the tight ends a little bit more.
You just did age him down by like 100 years from the last time. I think you called him 182 the last time. So
yes. He's officially the oldest man in football. Although he was drafted at like 11 years after Tom Brady,
which so again, I mean,
that's pretty good.
It's just fine.
I'm just loving guys that are going to be drafted into the league that were born after Tom Brady was drafted. We're getting to that point, which is kind of funny. But as I watched the game yesterday, Tom Brady still scared the hell out of me, especially in that last drive. I knew he was going to go down and score, and they would have got the 2-point conversion if they didn't have the clock violation. The other thing too is, as I watch both quarterbacks, they're both still fine. They're still both at a very, very high level. Their brains are still working at a high level. Their arms, everything about them is just fine. They're not the problem. I would run the offense for both of those quarterbacks. Like Green Bay's offense looked best when they played with a little bit more tempo. Those two drives, they weren't draining the play clock like they like to do. They were playing at a little faster pace. Tampa Bay, first drive, first play, like you said, 24-yard completion. Then all of a sudden they slowed things down. That last drive, I'm assuming Tom Brady was in charge of the offense in that last drive, right?
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what? Look, I don't think a young quarterback necessarily should be calling his own plays, but those two guys, I think, could call their own plays, and I think things would be just fine. Well, also, you wouldn't, you wouldn't have these communication issues. How many times does Green Bay burn timeouts early in the half? I mean, it just happens every week.
Well, and look, I know there's people out there. Actually, I was having a conversation on Twitter right before we started recording this about someone, kind of doing the snarky, like, oh, when everything's wrong, it's the Bucs calling the plays, but when everything's right, it's Brady. It's like, well, kinda. I mean,
right? Yeah,
it's not like look, Brady's not on the sidelines installing plays and everything like that. Obviously, he has a lot of clout in terms of what he likes to do, but he's at the end of the day going to defer to the coach's game plan. Like they're the one. Do you honestly think that Tom Brady wants to, if they're struggling to win games, trying to balance 50-50, do you think Tom Brady's not going to want to throw the ball more? So,
sure.
People will sit there, well, oh, how can you be a hypocrite? Blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the deal. When you give Tom Brady an opportunity, like in that last minute drive, you're not turning to the sidelines to get the play call. Okay. So very clearly it was basically him, directing, deciding. There's multiple play calls that they can run off. Obviously they were pointing it out, him making the calls at the line based on the coverage, everything like that. And guess what? Every Packers fan in that stadium, well, actually, there were a lot of Packers fans. I heard several "Go Pack Go," "Let's Go Packers" kind of faintly in that.
So they travel. Yeah, they travel, and there's
Buccaneers fans, come on, guys, let's step it up. All right,
are there any really? I mean,
look. I'm not a Buccaneers fan. I do know quite a bit of them.
Sure.
But they're a very fine bunch, and I appreciate people who appreciate Brady. But I'm looking at this play calling and I'm trying to figure out what's the motivation in trying to forget about his age. This isn't about preserving Tom Brady. He threw 713 passes last year and could have thrown more if he wanted to.
That's insane. That really is. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. And he didn't waver. And that's, we talked about this last year. Well, every quarterback essentially in the history of this game has struggled to win at a high rate when throwing a lot, because generally that means you're behind or it's a tough thing to do. Brady doesn't. So why limit yourself offensively? I mean, forget about who's out. Like I said, I mean, I know, look, you don't have Mike Evans, you don't have Chris Godwin, you don't have Julio Jones, you're on your third left tackle, backup center. Yeah, that's an issue. Sure. Absolutely. bigger issue is play calling, John. 100%. Because the inconsistency of it and the predictability of it. My good God, like how many first down runs are you going to do to set up 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8? You know, and then it's like
Green Bay does the same exact thing. Green Bay does the same thing. It's constantly 3rd and 8. It's like I could defend these two offenses, other than the fact that we're talking about the two extremely great quarterbacks. But yeah, it's a run again, and okay, now it's 3rd and 7. We've got these two quarterbacks; they'll figure it out. Well, why not throw on first down? Why not more hard play action from both of these guys? And I think it was the same issue with both of them. They're the two best at play action, right?
I don't know what the Packers rate is, but I know the Buccaneers are near the bottom of the league in play action usage, and it's the most asinine thing ever.
And they're by far the two best at it. I mean, a lot of these things,
they're the two best quarterbacks in the league, and like through 3 weeks. Through 3 weeks after the up and down, like over the top reaction, especially to Patrick Mahomes week. Look, where are we now at week 3? You know what I mean? Compared to after week 1, where everyone was like, all right, he's it. That's it. No one's touching him. And it's like, I don't even know if he's the best young quarterback in the league right now. But the two are very clear. And like I said, forget about the score. Forget about the low, quote unquote, offensive output. They're very clearly the two best, and you can see it every single play. I mean, at one point, John, and this wasn't a situation. I know Aaron Rodgers was throwing a lot of short passes, and Brady was obviously doing it as well. But the numbers checked out, and it passed the eye test because the accuracy at one point, I think between the two of them had 2 incompletions and about 30 pass attempts. And this wasn't they were accurate. This wasn't just a matter of dumping it off to the running back. I mean, these were accurate, well calculated, designed plays that they executed, and it was incredible. And like really, Tom Brady's only streak of incompletions came when they were on the 1 yard line, and they got stuck back there. And I think he threw 3 incompletions, and one of them was kind of a throwaway because the play wasn't going to work, so he just threw it out of bounds.
At halftime, they were 28 of 32.
Yeah.
The 4 incompletions, 1 was a drop and 2 were throwaways. So they essentially had 1 bad pass between the two of them. And I know we people listening to us, we sound like 2 old guys sitting on the park bench yelling at the clouds, talking about, how great Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays. That's what we sound like. These young kids today.
At least these two are still playing right now. So
that's true too. Yeah, we're not belaboring, Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw. I'll go there at times with people if they want, but the play calling is just like, just let these guys run the offense. Like, what are you doing, getting in the way of and you can just tell. And I think the biggest thing with Tampa is I don't think it's when Rob Gronkowski comes back. Brady was miserable in 2019. He doesn't look that happy right now. He just doesn't seem himself. I mean, he's still playing at a ridiculously high level. I think the common denominator there is no Rob Gronkowski, not just as a player. I think that's his best friend in football. Mm-hmm. And I think he looks at Gronk as like his kid brother that kind of keeps him young. Yeah. And I think he kind of looks at Gronk and says, man, I'd love to be Gronk, single guy, not a lot of responsibilities, hangs out with his brothers, headbutts his brothers. I'm married to the supermodel. That's great. I got 3 kids. That's great. But, I got a lot of responsibilities. I'm the quarterback. I can't act the way Gronk does. I think he misses him. As much off the field as on the field. So I'm guaranteeing you that Brady's already, short tried and will probably be successful at some point getting him back.
Well, look, Cameron Brate he's a fine player and he can make some plays. He's not Rob Gronkowski. And there was a play last week on a 3rd down where Brate kind of got stopped in his tracks. And the first thing I thought of was like Rob Gronkowski gets that first down. And it's even at his maybe 75% state, he still gets that first down. So do I think he's going to come back? Sure. I would not bet against it. Let's put it that way. Depending on the long-term outlook of Julio Jones, who obviously is dealing with a knee injury right now, it may become necessary for them to seek more outside wide receiver help. Maybe it's Odell Beckham Jr. as he heals. I mean, this team is clearly, look, and this is what they should do. They have a guy in Tom Brady who is obviously his time is limited. So we think, he could read an article about someone playing until the age of 52 and then being like, you know what, I could do him one better. And then here we go again, another 10 years of Tom Brady. But, realistically, the Buccaneers have to, this isn't a build for long term. No, your window is now to win. Okay. And clearly, again, we look at Brady play, we look at Roger. They're both playing at the top of their game. I mean, we'll get to these other quarterbacks here in just a minute to close the show, but like they're very clearly at the top of their game. I mean, look around the league, and as much as I think Josh Allen is playing very well, and like just because I think maybe obviously Brady and Rodgers aren't right now in the quote unquote MVP race, doesn't mean that. And I've said this before, the MVP, the winner, isn't necessarily the best quarterback in the league. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like you look at Rodgers, you look at Brady, their ability to read defenses, to dictate the offenses, and basically exploit your weaknesses is unmatched. And we see that week to week. So I think, hopefully, I really hope they get to meet again. I came away thinking both defenses are championship quality. I mean, I don't know if they're the best defenses in the league. I think the Buccaneers have a better one. I thought coming into the week they were very good. They showed some vulnerability, but again, the ability to adjust, I think, is very important in this situation. So I hope they end up meeting again, and I hope, for the sake of the Buccaneers at least, they're healthy and they have at least one of their wide receivers. But the Bucs do get Kansas City next week, so we'll get to check that out. So speaking of Kansas City, we spent about 5 seconds talking about Kansas City during our game picks, and we both picked the Chiefs. And surprise, surprise, the Chiefs lost. And once again, the offense struggled. It struggled. The only time they were able to put the ball in the end zone, I believe, were on two fairly short fields after turnovers. And you had, I know people make a big deal about it when it's Brady. I don't really care, but you had Patrick Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy kind of going back and forth on the sideline. Look, it's sports. People are passionate. I don't care about that. To me, that I think that's healthy in a sense, and to a certain extent. So that I don't really care about. What I care about is, well, Tyreek Hill's absence kind of feels like it's making his presence felt a little bit. Yes or no? I guess.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Tyreek Hill is the ultimate home run hitter. So, if you've got a pitcher's duel going on and the home run hitter gets up in a tie game and sends one 475 feet into the bleachers, you win the game. That's the type of player Tyreek Hill is. And we see what Miami's done. They're 3-0 with a quarterback that I don't think either one of us was really sold on. I mean, they're elevating Tua without question. But yeah, I mean, look, that win over the Chargers on the Thursday night, the Chargers outplayed them.
Yeah.
If not for a pick six, a 99-yard pick six, by the way, that's a 14-point swing. The Chargers win that game.
Boy, things gone rapidly downhill the last 5 quarters for the Chargers. But that we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Oh, man. What a team. I mean, I really like the Chargers. I love Justin Herbert, but boy, they frustrating to watch. Yeah. But yeah, so, and then you put up, 17 yesterday in Indianapolis. Now, I don't know what it is. Indianapolis, for some reason, seems to match up against Kansas City, right? Like a couple of years ago, remember they shut them down?
Right.
Back in 2019, whether it's the coaching staff or the personnel they have, they really seem to frustrate Patrick Mahomes. And look, every great quarterback has had teams that give them trouble, right? I mean, Brady had the Jets for a while or whatever, Baltimore at times. So it does happen. But yeah, I mean, Tyreek Hill is a guy that when all else fails, get him the ball and he's going to make a play and flip the field. And they don't have him anymore. They decided not to pay him, and he, I think, wanted to move on for whatever reason. Maybe he had a falling out with Patrick Mahomes. We don't hear as much about that, but yeah, they definitely miss him.
No, and look, I mean that just kind of, again, this is why, especially those week one overreactions are always so comical, because it's like, let's and again, I'm asking for everyone to be rational, reasonable thinking people, and that obviously is just not going to ever happen. So we're always going to get those overreactions, but kind of bringing it back full circle to the two old guys. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has a long ways to go to be Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. Like, I mean, part of it, yes, it's time spent in the league, it's experience, but it's, I mean, you can't there's no one out there that's going to argue that Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or insert young hyped quarterback A, B, or C, wherever, that they're going to overcome or outmatch Brady or Rodgers' wits, their intelligence, their pocket presence, all of that stuff. That is, you don't have a metric for that. You can't go to PFF, or you can't go to whatever StatMuse or whatever people use now. I mean, these, whatever comes out, you can't go to those sites and find, oh, what's his pocket presence number? Well, no, there isn't. You just have to understand that those two are great at it, and we saw it again yesterday. And again, it doesn't have to be a high scoring game. It doesn't have to be a necessarily all all out offensive onslaught for them to show off how great they are. And we saw that. And on the flip side, we saw Josh Allen struggle a little bit. I mean, we both, I think, really like Josh Allen, and I think he's made some incredible strides year in and year out. And I think he's going to continue to do that. But he's still a young quarterback, and you see that from time to time. Like, his athletic ability makes up for a lot of things that normal quarterbacks would probably, turn into negative plays. So that helps, and that kind of offsets some of those things. But he still makes mistakes. Same with Patrick Mahomes. That last play, I mean, that was one of the laziest interceptions I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the guy was his feet were awkward, and this is this kind of the thing that we talk about when it comes to Mahomes, where it's like everyone gets so enamored with these off balance throws and these awkward tilts. Like, for all his athleticism, Aaron Rodgers for the most part has really good footwork, and that's what separates him from necessarily all these other athletic quarterbacks, is that, like, when push comes to shove, he can play in the pocket. I'm not that convinced that Patrick Mahomes can do that yet. I mean, again, we've been talking about this for a couple of years now. This isn't a me reacting to what I just saw. This is, again, I like to think I'm very consistent, John. Now, don't answer that if the answer is the opposite of what I believe, or just nod and you just be like, yeah, okay, Ian, because, hey, I don't want to get all riled up. I'm already turning into a force to be reckoned with, so to speak.
You and I, we all need to prepare for the possibility of significant impacts from what is now Hurricane Ian.
That's right, folks. I'm dealing with the irony, the delicious irony of the fact that I'm right in the eye of the hurricane named after myself here in St. Petersburg and Tampa. So,
do I get a little credit though? I mean, Ian, John, Jean. I mean, we're all kind of the same name, right?
Well, actually, I am a Scottish version of John, actually.
Right.
Ian, yeah. So in a way, there we have a there's a kinship there.
Yes. Unless I should officially change my name to Giovanni.
Giovanni?
Because that would be kind of cool. Yeah.
Giovanni Zappacetti.
Yeah.
I kind of sounded like Mario there, but I apologize. So
you did, yes.
Italian-American friends out there. That was...
Or yeah, that's what we accept it.
Okay,
we all have fun with it.
I cook great sauce, or gravy, as you like to call it, so...
Yes, gravy, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we call it. Gravy and macaroni. It's not pasta and sauce. Let's get this all right here. Or just drop the middle initial in there somehow. So, Stephen A. Smith sounds much cooler than Stephen Smith, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Johnny J. Sapp, I think that's what I'm going to go with from now on. That'll make me very, very unique. Okay, JJ Sapp, yeah. I could be one of the Watt brothers, yeah. Because I definitely have the same body type of DJ and JJ. We're all pretty much
are you flipping tires?
The same.
Are you flipping tires?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The little ones on my the little ones I had when I was a kid. I'm flipping. That's about it. The only thing I'm flipping is pancakes at this point.
Hey, they're shaped like tires. Tires. So there you go. It's all the same. And if you get those double stacked pancakes, hey, getting pretty heavy. So
I like them.
Yeah. So, anyways, look, I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, I mentioned another big matchup for the Bucs next week with the Colts, or I'm sorry, with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Brady. Obviously, Rodgers now they moved to 2-1. The Bucs are 2-1. We haven't really had a chance to talk about them, but we will tomorrow when we have a little bit more time. But the Eagles, again, another very impressive win. They could be right now kind of really gearing up to go on a nice run and really look like the most complete, or the team that's playing the best across the board in the NFC right now. So, So anyways, we'll do that tomorrow though. So we're gonna have to say goodbye for now. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Full Press NFL, and of course head over to fullpresscoverage.com to check out all the latest and greatest from the world of sports. So thank you everyone, and we will talk to you tomorrow.